Welcome to Fall, Rise, Give, a space where we invite you to dig into the real cause of your suffering, looking at opportunities for growth with a change in your beliefs, thoughts, and actions so you can be your true self and be inspired. Join us as we explore life's ups and downs and navigate the twists and turns, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of giving back. Whether you're looking for a change, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for candid conversations, raw emotions, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back on life's extraordinary journey. Welcome to another edition of Fall, Rise, Give, turning struggles into opportunities by being your true self and help others. How you doing? I'm Bartender Bob. Of course, my co-host Kumar's with. Kumar, what's up, buddy?
Rock on, Bob. We've got a great guest today. I'm super excited. It is rainy in Seattle again, and it's going to rain all week. But, you know, I bring the sunshine wherever I go, so here we are.
And, of course, our guest, Sasha Tozzi. First question is, who is Sasha?
Who is Sasha? $1 million question. I can describe myself in lots of different ways. I have lots of different identifiers, but really I'm just a human being on this earth at the same time as everybody else who's here right now. And somebody that has, I think, been through a lot and traversed through a lot of different challenges that have really defined my life, and recovery being one, sobriety being one, but quite a few different things that changed the course of my life, and that I now live from that place of just gratitude and hopefully some wisdom.
I kind of want to dive right into the whole, you said you had to traverse a bunch of things. What are some of the struggles that you had early on to bring you to the point where you are?
Honestly, since I was little, I seemed to just struggle a lot. In school, I struggled in the social sector, I struggled academically. I was kind of like a stressed out 7-year-old. And so, I had learning disabilities in school. I had, I just kind of everything that seemed, and this is where the differentiation is, where we don't know how it is for other people. We just know how it seems for other people. But it always seemed like, what was common sense or just natural for peers my age seemed to just give me a lot of difficulty. Every rite of passage, just as I said, the school part, but then socialization, I was very shy and quiet. It was just a struggle to even get me to go to school. And so that kind of started young, and then as I got older, it was the older I got, the problems got a little more serious, because I'm an adult now, or I'm a late adolescent, or a young adult, or not a young adult anymore, and it's just problems have more consequences, Yeah,
they're big person consequences once you get older. You can get in trouble for stuff rather than just having to stand in the corner or write sentences on a chalkboard.
Exactly. A little more serious than timeout.
I do want to mention my philosophy, and I'm writing a book as well. That's kind of how we started the podcast. Our philosophy is our struggles define us. And we can actually have the ability to turn those struggles into gifts.
Yeah.
And those gifts are really, it's kind of what you're doing with your coaching services and things like that. Those gifts really bring a lot of relatability to other people who can now actually benefit from our experiences and can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel for themselves. And then when we give back, that's why this podcast is called Fall, Rise, Give. We all fall in little, miniature cut days every single day, or in big ways through business failures, relationship failures, whatever. And then we find a way. We always rise. Maybe not as high as we want to sometimes, but we definitely pick up the pieces. And then once we start to realize the gifts that come from the struggles, that's where the beauty starts. And that's kind of where you probably have come to. But I just wanted to add that in because I know that you mentioned the struggles are kind of defines you, and it's a huge thing for me personally.
Oh, for sure. I appreciate that, Ad. I do think I found a lot of purpose in my pain, right? And making my pain my purpose, making my struggle my strength. My, it, I think when something changes you so intensely to the core, it's a very natural response to want to then teach from that place, give from that place, because you're a completely different person. And that's kind of what happened with me. And so I believe that we can use our experiences is exactly what you said, where like our struggles, and it's not even in a negative way, like our struggles define us. It's more just like owning it and naming it and being able to transmute some of that pain into power.
I love the word transmutation. We can turn lots of energies and transmute that into the positive when we're conscious of whatever it is that we're trying to do. And we can do that through focusing on what we want rather than getting stuck in things in the past. You had a question right before we got started around, what is this podcast? How did Bob and Kumar get started? So I'd love to tell you a little story on that piece. So Bob and I went to high school together in Twin Cities. And we connected probably a couple of decades ago when I worked at Microsoft. And he interviewed me on the show. He was a radio host for 20 some years. And then I've always wanted to write a book. I didn't know what the book was going to be about. I kind of did. It had something to do with the seven chakras. Kind of have a very interesting Hindu and a Christian belief system. But I didn't really know at the time to what extent. It's been like a 20-year project of mine. And one of the themes, I stopped drinking about a year and a half ago, and I joined what I call the Attitude Adjustment Program, and went through a kind of a spiritual awakening as part of that process, and really took it head on, attending meetings every single day, and really going through owning my sobriety. And I was never, I call myself the mainstream drunk, not really hardcore, never got a DUI, never really did anything. Very functional, corporate jobs, things like that. But I knew I didn't want to drink. And I just knew from a health perspective that I had to stop. And so I approached Bob because I was writing a book, and a friend of mine suggested that I start a podcast, because podcasts are a pretty big deal right now for a lot of people. They don't want to read. They want to listen to podcasts as they're going about during the day. So we came up with the idea. We've been doing this for about a year now. And the whole idea is to share stories with people about people like yourselves, people that we run into, people that could be, almost to the level of celebrity status that can have 500,000 or 1 million followers on Facebook, to anybody who doesn't really have any Facebook followers, but they've got a great story. We've had some amazing hosts, amazing guests on the show that have really touched lives. And so our whole purpose is to give back to society and find little bits of wisdom, little tidbits, and share them with people. And then a lot of this, a lot of the learnings will go into the book that I'm about to go down the path of publishing. But it's not focused on recovery per se, as it is about self-development, self-empowerment. Recovery will be mentioned in it because it's a big part of my life. But when I started this conversation, I kind of did it in a way that, imagine a person having a conversation with a bartender who's heard all the stories. So Bob and Kumar is this conversation between a bartender and a person struggling with alcohol. So that's kind of the conversation, how we started out doing it. And really wanted to get a bartender's perspective. But really, Bob being the expert in podcasting and radio personality for years in Wisconsin, he has a lot more ability to bring out the story, the gist of the conversation. So that's kind of how we started out, and been doing it about a year now.
That is so cool. I love that.
So did that answer your question that you had before we started?
It did. Yeah,
You know, it's
it
funny.
did.
That's the first time that actually this is episode 51. So next week it'll be a year, and that's the first time I believe that story's been told in its entirety.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody's
Wow.
ever asked that. Nobody's ever asked that. So great for you to ask that question.
And
Yeah, I'm a very curious person, and thanks for being open enough to share it. And it's really interesting because it's a unique. I think it's a unique angle that I
yeah.
haven't seen before. Really, doing a podcast, doing interviews. So that's really cool.
Well, the funny thing I'm an active bartender, and I go out and have cocktails once in a while, and I've been asked many times. It's like, so tell me about this podcast you're doing. It's called Follow, Rise, Give. What's it about? I'm like, it's about recovery. Yeah, but you're a bartender, and you drink. I'm like, yeah, but it's funny because you get the chance to share some of the stories that I've seen. I get to get a lot of great stories from people like you, Sasha, and from Kumar, and you just hear all those things. And then I drink less now than I used to because I believe because of the show and because
Mm.
trying to be a healthier person and trying to live my true life and to be my true self.
That's amazing. Yeah, there are. I feel like there are no mistakes. I believe there are no mistakes, and so this came into your world. Maybe it's just part of your. It's part of your journey and evolution. You don't have to necessarily be sober, but it's interesting now in the sober movement. How many people are just sober curious or going sober for wellness reasons, or
Mm-hmm.
they just recognize that it doesn't bring much to their lives or add much value to their lives, and so they're choosing it for that reason, as opposed to like some years ago you only got sober if you had a problem.
Nowadays, it's like January. As a bartender, I see my business. December, you got you got Christmas, and people are like, they've had it up to here with family, so they go to the bar.
Mhm.
January, they've got the dry January, and it just drops off. And I see that as because I bartend at two different places, and I see that at both places that January it's less, and then February it starts to pick back up again. And it's funny though because like in the first part of February, people are a little bit less likely to get drunk, and then later on in the month, they start to go back to their old habits.
Yeah, exactly. Less people in the bars in January, early February, but they're all in the gym, and then they switch back.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, like I said, we grew up in the Twin Cities, and I remember I bought a membership to Gold's Gym, and you had to buy it at the time you had to buy it for the year. And I remember I was in high school, so it was in the '80s. I paid $350 for a membership to Gold's Gym, and Kumar's looking like I remember I went two times,
Oh, geez.
and what a waste of money. But now look at me, I'm an Adonis.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. But the gym for me, man, I think it's hilarious. The gym for me is medicine in the mornings.
Mm.
I went to the gym this morning. It opens at 7. I got there at 7:05, and it's something that I just got to do for mental health.
Hmm.
And get my body moving. It's super important, and yeah, so it's really important. So let's talk about empowerment, Sasha. So how do you help others in your coaching services and or in daily life? How do you bring that little bit of joy and a little bit of Sasha-ness to the world?
As simplified as I can, I really just being present. So whether it's with a client, a coaching client, I do coaching and hypnosis, um, working with people one on one. I've run some groups too, but I prefer one on one work. But if it's whether it's a client, a friend, a family member, a fellow out in the community, just any human being, I really just my I like to just be as present as I can with people, meeting them where they're at, and kind of just tuning into what is needed here, what someone might be needing at that time, whether it's like an encouraging word, like they need to be pumped up, they need to be kind of hyped up and be really validated. any person is really looking to be seen and heard and valued. If I'm not being present with you, if I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next while you're talking, if I'm not trying to see you, if I'm just like in my head about what I have going on in my life and not holding space for you, then that's going to come through. Like that person is not going to feel seen. They're going to feel like essentially like I'm emotionally unavailable to them. And it's not like we're in an intimate relationship, but emotional availability is for any like interpersonal relationship.
Being in the moment is exactly what we all need to do anyway. I mean, as you mentioned that, and I believe that these right here are going to kill everybody eventually because people walk
Yep.
around with their face in their phone all the time. I mean, I see it at the bar, I see it when I go out, and even though it's illegal to drive with your phone in your hand or whatever, every single day I see somebody driving with a phone in their hand. And I ride a motorcycle, and that scares the hell out of me. It's being on the road, looking over and seeing somebody texting. It's like, get off your phone, drive, pay attention, be in the moment, be where you should be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just distractions, constant distractions in today's modern world. The phones are it's bad. It's bad. I mean, I have to watch my own tendencies to it's an addiction. It's an addiction. Technology, I mean, the apps and the colors of your phone are designed to get you addicted.
And the noises are too. I mean, if somebody, honestly, if one of the three of us right now, if our phone dinged, if that's the right word, everyone would look at their phone because it's like, oh, somebody might be getting a hold of me too, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just, unfortunately, that's the way it is that we're all kind of trained now when we hear those noises to look at our phone, or if somebody else is doing it, we pick it up, unfortunately, which is too bad. So, Sasha, how did you overcome your addictions, and how did you, decide that, what, enough is enough, and I'm deciding I'm going to move on?
So I would say I had a pretty like high bottom, if quote unquote high bottom, as in like my life wasn't in shambles, but there were enough things that happened over time. I think I just reached a point where it was an internal, like, I know that there's more out. I know that there's more for me. And if this can't be all there is, like, I, like I was just in that cycle and that very destructive, vicious cycle of binge drinking, blacking out, doing stuff I didn't want to do, and not being able to control it, but continuing to try to control it. And then getting into some illicit drugs. And I think that I was young. So I think I just was like, I'm done. Like, I'm in enough pain. I'm in enough psychic pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain to try this. And I did not like think that I was going to stay. Like I wasn't planning on making a lifestyle change. I just was like giving it a shot. And I used I was 26. I had just turned 26 and I used Alcoholics Anonymous and that opened the door, just quitting drinking, going to meetings, meeting new people. It kind of just opened the door to lots of changes in my life. So just the longer that I stayed on the path of recovery, no matter what it looked like, because there's a million different ways you can do it. There's not one way. I do believe in like individual choice with that, and just honoring what the person feels is best for them, as long as it's some sort of structured thing. Um, I just stayed and like my world kept opening up, and I found yoga, and I found I was learning a lot, and it was still really hard because once you took away, like, for me, once once the drugs and alcohol and partying and kind of that lifestyle, there was all this time that opened up. I realized that it was hiding other problems. Like, so I don't believe that, I mean, I think addiction is a symptom. Addiction is a symptom of like an underlying, you know, trauma, unprocessed trauma, any sort of depression, anxiety, like just things that are, I think, yeah. So that was there. That was there to look at once we took away the acting out that got so much attention, you know, like you need to just quit drinking. You need to I had an intervention when I was 20 years old, and it was like it is a problem. This is a problem to be abusing substances and addicted to drugs, but this isn't the main problem. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. It's totally a symptom. There's a big disconnect with the way life's supposed to be, that you want it to be, and you're not there. And you're like, oh my God, this sucks. What the hell? I'm just gonna numb my pain. So
Mm-hmm.
you're numbing your pain through anything. Some people might just go to the gym all the time and numb their pain that way. Some people
Yeah.
might be addicted to sugar and cookies and ice cream. Some people might be addicted to drugs or alcohol. But these addictions are there to show us that there is an underlying issue that we need to face. I'm reminded of a quote, and I think it's really hard for people to do. I might have mentioned this before, Bob, so I apologize for that in advance, not to bore you with it. But a man thinking or working is always alone, especially amongst his own thoughts. But it's really hard to think. It's really hard to just be. I go to the gym, I have my headset on. I'm constantly listening to music. I go for my
Mm-hmm.
dog walk. Maybe I'll have a little bit of time to think about stuff. But to actually be alone to think through your problems, rarely do we find that time. And
Mm,
we won't spend time there. We'll go to a Netflix show. We'll go to a sporting event. We'll go to a music concert. We're constantly doing things to get away from this thing inside our head and those thoughts that help us process what's really going on inside, these emotions that are still bottled up. And then they come out in destructive ways through addiction or whatever. And so I think the key is to somehow, like you said, be present, be fully aware of what's going on in my head right now.
mm-hmm.
Worried about the future? Am I feeling low self esteem? Am I feeling a little depression? What's the cause of it? Why am I feeling that way? And
Yeah.
so those are the kind of things that I think you're right. Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, Sasha, so what have you done as a coach? What are you using for motivation or for strategies that you're doing and sharing with your clients so that way they can help themselves to, a cleaner life or a better life or, whatever it is for their goals?
In working one to one with somebody, it is a pretty individualized process. So I'll customize kind of the way that I see a solution, like the way that I see a solution working for them is customized to them and what they're bringing to me, and I just try to meet them where they're at. But I would say to try to like package that up nicely in an answer, there's some common themes. And one common theme is people's internal dialogue. So their self-talk, like how they talk to themselves. And that's something that we all do. Like there's nobody who doesn't do that. And so there's nobody who can't benefit from paying attention to what is going on so that they can shift what needs to be shifted. So like it's really hard to feel good about yourself and have a good day if you're like talking shit in your head nonstop, right? And you do it like many people do it automatically. They don't even realize. So back to the conversation about presence, it's not that we're not going to be 24/7, 100% aware, present, and conscious, but we just want to be present more often than not, more often than zoning out with busyness and distractions and too many things on the calendar and the TV and the phone and the this and the that, so that you're not alone with your thoughts, and you don't even know what is going on up there. And most people's default autopilot is not nice, right? Like, even if it's not self-loathing talk, it's probably pessimistic. It's probably catastrophic. It's probably like very cynical, especially given that most things in our environment are working to, like, they're working to suggest, what's the word, influence our thoughts. And if you ever watch the news lately, or go on Facebook or go on Instagram, there's a lot of negativity out there. So think about it, like, if your mind is a computer and you're feeding it all of that stuff, like, so anyway, that is one tool, is learning to slow down in their daily life enough to pay attention to what's going on in between their ears, and really them getting to see the benefit of, oh, when I have this thought and believe this thought in my head, I suffer. When I have this thought and recognize that I can tell myself a different story right now, I feel better.
I talk a lot about mindset shifting your mindset. We are our thoughts. Years ago, back in Minnesota, after college, I read a book called "As a Man Thinketh" by James Allen. I just love that book. It's a short little book about everything positive you can ever imagine. I think it was written in the 1890s. It's still a classic that you can buy on Amazon. There's a quote in there that I memorized: cherish your visions, cherish your ideals, cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind. And if you stay true to these, your world will at last be built.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think it is all about controlling our thoughts. And the easiest way that I know how to do that is constantly focusing on, what do I want? What do I truly want in this situation?
I need to specify something because I don't want to misrepresent myself or my work, which is to say that the mindset piece is so important and directing our thoughts as much as possible. But I also have a very gentle approach where, like, I believe in is in kind of accepting everything that we're feeling. So you want to set yourself up for success and positive mindset. But if you're having a bad day, if you're going through some hard shit and hard feelings, if you're feeling depressed, if you're angry about something, if you're grieving, I definitely don't, I'm not a proponent of, like, switching to positivity. Like, I don't believe in toxic positivity in that respect. I really try to, our society as a whole doesn't know how to hold space for difficult feelings. So I really try to, that's the other piece of this, and the other side of, like, of becoming aware of what's happening in your internal dialogue, is also becoming aware of how you're feeling in your body. And if there's a negative feeling, which I don't believe in negative feelings, what is that trying to tell you? Like, what needs your attention right now? Because that's at the core of the whole issue of redirecting our attention to trying to numb out on drugs, alcohol, food, going to the gym, is to not feel and to not acknowledge how we feel. So the antidote is to, like, become aware of how you feel and actually give yourself what you need. And a lot of times people don't like to hear this because they want, like, a solution. They want, like, a 3-step plan that'll fix how they're feeling. But if you can just sit with, like, your sadness and let it be, that's all you need to do. And, like, have compassion for yourself that you're feeling a feeling. Give yourself what you need. Treat yourself. I do a lot of inner child stuff. So it's like there's a part there's a part of ourselves in each of us that is very, very vulnerable. And living in the world as it is today, we don't, we were taught and trained and conditioned to like be a machine, not be like a feeling person who, you know, and let that be okay. Like we're taught to perform, produce, generate, you know, emotions are weak. And if you've had any like cultural family conditioning on top of that, or any, you know, I was a sensitive kid. I was a sensitive kid and highly sensitive to my environment, to the people around me. And my parents did the best that they could, but they didn't know how to parent a sensitive kid. It was just like, you do what you have to do to survive. And they wanted me to be strong, not weak. So it was like, you know, stop crying, like get back out there. And so there's nuance, but you get my point of just like most people are not comfortable with their emotions. They don't even know what they feel. So part of the work that I do with people is to really just get acquainted again with their emotional landscape and uh learn how to identify, name their feelings, and then learn how to be gentle with themselves as those feelings process through. And journaling is a great tool to, if you need like a, you know, a practical thing that can help you see how you feel, like journaling is a great one for that.
Sasha, how do we find out more information about you and the work that you're doing?
Oh, so just my website, sashaptozzi.com. And then www. And then Instagram. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm mostly more active on Instagram, and it's just my name, Sasha_Tozzi.
No, I do want to reinforce what you said, and I do want to acknowledge and say how valuable it was for you to say what you spent saying in the last few minutes about being present in the feelings. Hey, this is sadness. Maybe explore it a little bit more. Acknowledge that you're feeling sad. It's when we put it aside and put a pillow on and move to the positive thing. It's still there, right? And then it'll bubble up some other way. Um, Reading another great book, and you may like it, called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she talks about fear and how you can't get away from fear. Fear of whatever, acknowledging it and doing whatever it is you're supposed to be doing instead of it. But acknowledging that, hey, I'm afraid about this thing. Maybe dig into a little bit why. Maybe it's worthiness. Maybe it's whatever the deep root cause is. I just want to bring in a little closing thing. This week I had a little bit of a negative feedback, and I didn't sit with it. I just immediately got kind of pissed, and I just started to take action on something else that I wanted. But what I really, as you were talking about this, what I really acknowledge is that I was hurt by the situation. I was disappointed and feeling inadequate in my professional life by getting this feedback. And I almost looked at it as a character flaw, but I know it isn't. It's for whatever reason it happened. But I think maybe part of the reason it happened is for me to really sit into my feelings and say, I was just hurt. You said this thing in such a way, Mr. Boss. I didn't love it. Maybe I made a mistake. I probably made a mistake in your eyes for sure. In my mind, I don't think I did. But, regardless, you're the boss. You're writing the checks. I'm still hurt. And what I can do is I can make a decision to still be here or not be here. At the moment, I'm still at the place that I want to be there. But I just got to take and roll with the punches, saying, you know what, until God gives me a better plan, I'm going to be where I need to be. But right now, total acceptance of that. But I think what I just want to, in a long, chattery way, say that really want to sit with those feelings of inadequacy or depression or hurt. And I tend to not do that as much. I tend to go shift my mind and go, okay, it's what I want. I'm going to go down this path. But maybe I need to process it a little bit more and be a little more content.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's what most people do. Most of us do is it doesn't have to be through addiction. It's most of us just push away how we truly feel for how we want to feel. Or, like it's uncomfortable to have to go through that process of like, I was angry, but I was actually hurt and I felt inadequate. Like there's a lot of vulnerability there, and that is scary. And naturally, as humans, we anything that threatens our safety, and when it's that scary, it feels unsafe, right? So we're going to naturally avoid that stimulus, that trigger, which in this form is just feelings. But and I feel I'll have to say this, like for men, I'm a woman. I'm a woman, and I've had my own conditioning as a female. For men, I can imagine, and you guys can speak to this, that there's even more conditioning for males to not really have the range and spectrum of feelings, and really for the go-to, it's expected for the go-to to be kind of like anger or irritation, because that's like the socially acceptable response for a man. Like, and for a woman, we society does not like when women get angry. They'd rather you be like sad. So I just find that really interesting that yeah, like there's so many different emotions. There's 4 primary emotions, but there's so many subsets. And I just wonder how, like, not to flip it around on you guys, and I know you're trying to wrap up, but how that shows up in your life as far as just feeling like you're allowed to process your emotions.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall Rise Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall Rise Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.